Huawei is very dangerous.
Rarely does a country go to war with a private company.
We have met the enemy, and it is Huawei.
We're not going to do business with Huawei.
Huawei represents a national security risk.
But is this really about Huawei, or is it something bigger than that?
They said Huawei was finished. The US sanctions would kill them. But in 2025, something remarkable happened that nobody saw coming. Huawei captured 16.4% of China's smartphone market with 46.7 million units shipped, narrowly beating Apple, which shipped 46.2 million iPhones for a 16.2% share. The margin was razor thin, just 500,000 units, but the symbolism was massive. For the first time since 2020, Huawei had secured a full-year lead on the mainland smartphone market, reclaiming a throne most analysts thought was lost forever. To understand why this victory matters, we need to rewind to 2019. That's when the United States government decided to weaponize technology. US restrictions cut off Huawei's access to advanced chips and technologies, targeting the company with sanctions designed to cripple its operations. The impact was devastating and immediate. Huawei plummeted from the top position to struggling for survival. The company that once dominated China's smartphone market suddenly found itself without access to cutting-edge semiconductor manufacturing. Industry analysts weren't just skeptical about Huawei's future, they were writing obituaries for the consumer business division. Meanwhile, Apple seized the opportunity, capitalizing on Huawei's weakness and expanding its foothold in the world's largest smartphone market. The dependency was brutal. Huawei had relied heavily on US origin chips and software, and when that pipeline shut down, conventional wisdom said the company had no path forward. How do you compete in the smartphone industry without access to the most advanced processors? How do you maintain market share when your rivals are using technology that's generations ahead? The question seemed unanswerable. The situation appeared impossible, but Huawei wasn't ready to surrender. Instead, the company made a decision that would change everything. They would build their own chips, on their own terms, with their own partners. Enter the Kirin 9030, the processor that became the centerpiece of Huawei's resurrection. This wasn't just another chip. It was a statement of technological independence. The Kirin 9030 powered the Mate 80 Pro Max, Huawei's premium flagship model, showcasing what self-designed China-made processors could achieve. Here's where the story gets fascinating. Huawei wasn't working with cutting-edge manufacturing processes. The company turned to SMIC, the homegrown semiconductor manufacturer, which was using older, less advanced fabrication technology compared to what Apple and Samsung had access to. The production costs were significantly higher. The technical specifications on paper looked inferior. Every conventional metric suggested Huawei would produce phones that couldn't compete with the latest iPhones. But Huawei had a secret weapon that nobody anticipated. Software and hardware optimization became Huawei's competitive edge. The company compensated for older chip technology through clever engineering, squeezing every ounce of performance from processors that theoretically shouldn't have been able to keep up. Huawei made backward technology competitive with cutting-edge solutions by optimizing how software interacted with hardware, creating performance upgrades that defied the limitations of the manufacturing process. But chip independence was only part of the equation. Huawei needed a broader strategy, and they executed with ruthless precision. The company launched an aggressive product offensive throughout 2025, flooding the market with innovation. Foldable notebooks hit stores. The Nova series smartphones arrived with new features. The Pura 80 series and Mate 80 series showcased new technologies and camera capabilities. This wasn't random, it was calculated market momentum, ensuring Huawei's brand remained visible, relevant, and desirable while competitors struggled with supply chain issues. The premium positioning strategy proved crucial. While other manufacturers were cutting corners and reducing shipments of budget models to protect their margins, Huawei doubled down on high-end devices. This approach made perfect sense when you understand the economics. Wang noted that a strong premium presence would give brands like Huawei and Apple a crucial advantage in 2000 Qs, as high-end margins helped absorb rising production costs. Huawei was competing in Apple's territory, fighting for the same affluent Chinese consumers who valued quality and innovation over price. The broader market context made Huawei's success even more impressive. The entire smartphone industry in China faced mounting pressure from the global memory supply chain. Leading manufacturers prioritized capacity for clients amid surging demand from artificial intelligence applications and infrastructure. Xiaomi and Honor announced plans to raise prices of smartphones and tablets. Meizu was forced to cancel the launch of a new handset under cost pressure. The memory chip crisis was squeezing everyone. Yet, Huawei managed to generate revenue from its consumer business group, breaking through the sales barrier with new launches while maintaining its competitive schedule against Apple. The China-first strategy became Huawei's fortress. The company invested heavily in supply chain localization, finding homegrown suppliers, and building an independent ecosystem. Huawei deepened ties with Chinese component makers, creating strategic partnerships that reduced dependence on foreign technology. Products were tailored specifically for domestic preferences, leveraging deep local market knowledge that foreign competitors couldn't match. This wasn't just about being a Chinese brand in the Chinese market. It was about understanding cultural nuances, consumer behaviors, and market dynamics at a granular level that only a domestic player could achieve. The competitive landscape shifted in Huawei's favor in unexpected ways. Wang observed that the competitive landscape had changed in China as some domestic players stepped up their overseas push by shifting focus to markets such as India and Africa to avoid direct rivalry with a resurgent Huawei at home. Vivo, Xiaomi, and Oppo, all Chinese manufacturers, were essentially retreating from direct confrontation with Huawei domestically, choosing to fight battles elsewhere rather than face the rejuvenated giant on home turf. This market clearing gave Huawei strategic space to maneuver primarily against Apple, simplifying the competitive equation. The full 2025 rankings told the complete story. Vivo followed in third place with 46.1 million shipments and 16.2% market share, experiencing a 6.6% year-over-year decline. Xiaomi captured fourth position with 43.8 million units and 15.4% share, achieving 4.3% growth. Oppo rounded out the top five with 43.4 million shipments, 15.2% market share, and 2.1% growth. The numbers revealed a market where Huawei, Apple, and Vivo were separated by just 600,000 units, an incredibly tight race at the top. The fourth quarter dynamics added another layer of complexity. Apple surged 21.5% in the December quarter in China, banking on the release of its popular iPhone 17 series, capturing the top spot with a 21% share of the market in that period. This demonstrated that Apple's S&T backing down. The company still had tremendous strength and loyal customers willing to buy iPhones even as Huawei gained ground. Huawei's annual victory came despite Apple's strong finish, showing consistency across all 4 quarters, rather than relying on a single product cycle. China's overall smartphone market shipped a total of 284.6 million units in 2025, posting a 0.6% decline compared with the previous year. IDC expected the decline to widen in 2026 due to the memory chip crunch. Wang warned that rising memory costs are placing significant pressure on smartphone manufacturers, and this will remain a critical challenge throughout 2026. The environment was getting harder, not easier, which made Huawei's achievement even more significant. Globally, the picture looked different. Apple retained its position as the largest smartphone vendor in 2025 with a 19.7% share, ahead of Samsung Electronics' 19.1%. Xiaomi, Vivo, and Oppo ranked 3rd, 4th, and 5th worldwide. Huawei's victory was specifically Chinese. the company remained constrained by sanctions outside its home market, unable to replicate this success on a global scale. The implications extend far beyond smartphone sales figures. Huawei proved that domestic technology can compete at scale against the world's most advanced companies. The success represented validation of China's tech independence strategy, demonstrating that de-Americanization of technology supply chains was achievable. The sanctions intended to cripple Huawei instead catalyzed innovation, creating unintended consequences that produced a stronger, more independent competitor. Restrictions accelerated rather than prevented development, forcing creative solutions that might never have emerged without the pressure. Yet, challenges remain substantial. Huawei still operates behind cutting-edge manufacturing in terms of process nodes. Scaling production while maintaining quality presents ongoing difficulties. Cost pressures continue despite revenue generation. The 2026 outlook brings intensified memory crisis impact affecting the entire industry. Apple's global strength remains undeniable. Margin compression threatens profitability across the board. The sustainability questions linger. Can domestic chips keep pace as technology advances? How will Huawei handle global expansion while sanctions limit international operations? Will the company maintain innovation momentum year after year, or was 2025 a peak that cannot be sustained? Huawei absorbed higher production costs and accepted lower margins for technological sovereignty. The company chose strategic trade-offs that prioritized independence over short-term profitability. This long-game patience, this multi-year investment in self-reliance, delivered a victory that resonated beyond quarterly earnings reports. Huawei demonstrated that resilience, strategic adaptation, and domestic foundations can overcome resource disadvantages when executed with precision and determination. The comeback story is complete, but the next chapter is unwritten. Can Huawei maintain this momentum, or will Apple reclaim dominance? What do you think? Is this comeback sustainable or a temporary victory? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping our technological future.